Hello everyone, we are live. We are at Dos Maria's restaurant in downtown Yonkers, which is 200 Main Street. This is Yonkers Voice. I'm Ardina Seward with Angel Maysonet, and the hardest working man behind that camera is Rue Ross from Yonkers Voice. And today we have a treat because this man has a very busy schedule. Angel Maysonet is a retired NYPD detective. He retired as a detective, not as a cop, but as a detective, so that's a few grades above. And we're going to talk about politics, we're going to talk about crime, we're going to talk about a lot of things related to our lives, not only in Yonkers, but also in the metropolitan area. Angel is an anomaly because he is an individual who is a political conservative, shall we say. And he takes a lot of flack for that because in this woke age, it is not politically correct to be a political conservative. But we're in the era of bail reform, we're in the era of defund police.
And a minority.
Yeah. And we are in the era of open borders. So I'm going to let you take it from there.
So thank you for having me. I appreciate the collaboration and the invite. So I retired in 2014 out of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. I worked anti-terrorism my last 7 years. I was the case agent for the Najibullah Azazi case, which was Osama bin Laden's last plot against the United States before he was killed. My time as a police officer, I grew up in the Bronx, raised by a single mom. My time as a police officer, working in the community in which I grew up in, right? Probably about 4 miles from where I grew up. I worked in a 4-8, I grew up in a 5-2. I was a patrol cop for 12 years before I became a detective. Just that time really shaped my views on a lot of things, along with seeing my mother struggle, being homeless for a short time. Again, single mom, my older sister and I, we went through it. So, I have a lot of love for my Hispanic and Black community, in spite of, what they think because of my views. I want progress. I want civil discourse. I love civil discourse. I like to be able to respect others' opinions, listen to them, and have an educated, back and forth, right? Arguing gets us nowhere, right? Being angry at one another just because of our views gets us nowhere. Calling each other sellouts, right? Just because of our views gets us nowhere. Forgot where you came from, you think you're white, yada, yada, yada. That stuff gets us nowhere. Unfortunately, because of my views, I get that a lot. I can take it, I'm a big boy. It's just disheartening that so many people default to that ignorance, right? And say, oh, well, just because you're Puerto Rican, you should be a Democrat, or, you should be for defunding the police, or you should not be defending police the way you do. You should not be defending Trump the way you do. You should not be defending conservatism the way you do. And my thing is, hey, look, I have my views. I stand fast on them. Again, I'm open for civil discourse, and, come at me with facts. I love facts, and let's talk.
But historically, the Democratic Party has always been the party of African Americans and Latinos, minorities.
Absolutely.
And it's part of its platform is that it is a liberal entity. Yep. That works on behalf of the people. So, assuming that at one point you were part of that party, mm-hmm. At what point did you change from a Democratic liberal to a more to the right?
So I was always a conservative Democrat. I was never a liberal Democrat. My grandfather, Thomas Forner Sr., may he rest in peace, he was a staunch Democrat. I mean, the guy was, we lived in Patterson. He lived in Patterson houses in a 4-row by Lincoln Hospital, 343 143rd Street. He would campaign. I mean, he went to Mayor Koch, to Gracie Mansion, had dinner with Mayor Koch. He was a super, super conservative Democrat, right? Kennedy Democrat, as they like to say. So growing up, as a minority, as a Puerto Rican, I always thought I had no choice but to be a Democrat, right? That was kind of instilled in me since I was old enough to speak and comprehend. was that you were a Democrat because you're Puerto Rican, and that's it. I was a Democrat, but I always voted across party lines depending on my views. I changed to the Republican Party, I want to say in 2013-ish.
Yeah.
But I consider myself more of an independent. I registered Republican because I do, kind of marry with their values more than Democratic values, so to speak. But you cannot vote in the primaries if you're not registered with a party. You cannot be registered as an independent. So therefore, I chose to be registered as a Republican.
But there are those who would argue that the Republican Party represents racism, it represents repression of Black and Hispanic communities. Mm-hmm. So how do you defend your political position?
So the first thing I would say is that the Democrats were the party of the KKK, right? That's a fact. This is not something that's made up. This is the truth. Listen, are there racist Republicans? 1,000%. Are there racist Democrats? Yes, 1,000%. To me, I see the destruction that is going on, especially now, in the times that we live in minority communities that are run by Democrats. People say, well, it's red states that are having these issues. But the red state crime is driven by the blue cities. These democratic cities across the country, I mean, you name it, Detroit, Cleveland, New York, I mean, the list goes on, San Francisco. They are the driving force behind the crime numbers going the way they're going. That's not racist. That's a fact.
But what? But why? Why is that?
Because I believe that the Democrats enjoy having minorities dependent upon them. Because if you have, so let's take the AOCs of the world, right? Look at her district. Her district is in shambles. It's in shambles. She's too busy, dressing like a santera at the national conventions or the presidential address when Trump was in office. They try to make this. To me, they're more concerned with reparation style of governance,
but
right?
AOC was elected with an overwhelming majority. She defeated an incumbent who had been in office for forever. Mm-hmm. And she was a phenomenon because she was the youngest elected member of Congress.
Right.
But her support in District 14 is phenomenal. She's got Astoria. She's got Jackson Heights. She's got Corona. And despite all of the negatives, she still continues to get reelected. Right. So why does that happen?
Because one of my other favorite words is bamboozled, right? People are bamboozled. They, just like with when Obama ran for president, who, by the way, I voted for twice, okay, as well as voting for Trump twice. Obama was, a lot of people voted for him simply because he was black. A lot of people voted for her simply because she's Latina, okay? That's a fact. Now, again, go back to her district. You said Jackson Heights, Astoria. Look at what's going on there. You have this influx of illegals that are coming in here. They're prostituting on the street openly, like back in the 80s or the late 90s when I became a police officer. Nothing's being done about it, right? Or the bare minimum is being done about it because, unfortunately, to that point, the city council in New York touts themselves as police abolitionists, the vast majority of them, right? They're liberals. And when you take money away from the police and when you take funding away from training for the police, the people who suffer the most are the minorities, right? Because the people on Madison Avenue and on Fifth Avenue, the white folks, to be honest with you, they don't have the problems that we have in our communities. Now, the Democrats are doing nothing to get rid of pawn shops. They're doing nothing to get rid of liquor stores. They're doing nothing to get rid of the chicken joints that are open 24 hours a day in the minority communities that foster this crime, that have people hanging out, that people are with no direction. So to answer to kind of go back to your question, I feel that the Democrats thrive on being depended upon by minorities.
But here again, and and I hate to belabor the question, but you still have this overwhelming support of the Jamal Bowmans, of the AOCs, by the woke generation. A case in point is Bowman was asked by a congressional candidate, Marty Dolan, a few weeks ago, at a Yonkers community meeting about his support of Assata Shakur, who was a cop killer who cannot be extradited from Cuba, and Bowman apparently had her included in a mural as a black hero on the wall of a school that he was headmaster in the Bronx. And Bowman was asked to refute his support of Assata Shakur, and he refused to do that. So in spite of that, he still appears to have a good headwind, if you will, in the election, in the process against Latimer.
Right.
But people still continue to rally around him, even though he advocates for a cop killer.
Right. So it's, again, right, it goes back to the bamboozlement. If you look at the minority community, right, the people that they look up to, right, you have the Cardi B's of the world, right, you have the Fat Joes of the world, right, who was, by the way, in the White House last week advocating for health care or whatever it was, right? They look at Hollywood. Just look at all the rap artists. Look at the reggaeton artists, right? These people encourage drug use. They encourage misogyny, debauchery, right? I mean, basically, they encourage it through their music, through their actions. Listen, I get a lot of it as entertainment, but a lot of this young generation doesn't understand that that's exactly what it is entertainment.
But how do you
right?
turn people? Is it re-education? Is it being able to say, look, ditch the rap music, ditch the rap heroes, and rally around an educator, rally around a black doctor, rally around a Latino doctor?
Social media won't allow it. Okay, the algorithms that are controlled by social media, the stuff that look, if I look at one clip of Godzilla on my phone for the next 20 days, I'm going to have clips of Godzilla being sent to my profile, right? So these people are fed. If they look at one ideology and one way of thinking, and they don't look outside of the box and say, hey, look, what are the Democrats doing for us? If all they hear are we're going to pay off your college debt, right? COVID happened, we're going to pay you to stay home. Businesses are closing because they can't get anyone to work. Businesses are closing because they can't get money, right? Interest rates are through the roof right now. Under the Biden administration, interest rates have gone, to buy a house, the interest rates when he came into office were about 2.5%. They're up above, they're almost at 8% at this time, right? These are numbers that don't lie. So minorities claim that they want to thrive and they want equality, they want equity, but how can you, if you're claiming that you don't have the same opportunities, or you're claiming that you can't have the same jobs or have the same income as white folks, how are you supposed to prosper just by depending on the government for everything and hoping that eventually, if Biden wins another term, in the 7th or 8th year, finally interest rates will go down enough, right, because it's all cyclical, that I'll be able to buy a house at some point. Like, it doesn't make sense.
But how much of it? Well, this is a two-part question. How much of that is the creation of, or the purposeful creation of Democrats, so that it's kind of a dumbing down of the minority population to fulfill their needs? That's my first part question. And the other part that I want to ask is, you were a cop, you were on the street, and you arrested a lot of people in a lot of bad neighborhoods. So 9 times out of 10, you get a perp, if you will, who says, I didn't do nothing, so I stole, but I need to steal because I had to support my family, and I shouldn't go to jail. And then you've got 10 people behind him saying, why are you arresting him? He didn't do nothing. So it's kind of a psychology where they are telling you should let the guy go because his crime is not that severe. But yet and still, it's a crime that damages the Black and Hispanic community.
Right.
So how do you defend that kind? Not defend, but how do you change that kind of mentality?
So to that point, when I was a patrol cop, right, 9 times out of 10, I didn't lock anybody up for shoplifting, right?
Right.
I had bigger fish to fry. I was working
Right.
in an area where there was a drug spot on every corner. There was homicides were through the roof. It was a different era of policing when I first came on the job in 1992. So if a young woman or a young man stole a bottle of Similac from the local Rite Aid, I'd go in my pocket and pay for it rather than have them locked up, right? My thing was, I threw more nickel bags down the sewer than I locked somebody up for carrying a nickel bag in their pocket, because I realized that, hey, this young Hispanic or black man, right, or even because we covered part of Fordham University, even this young white kid from Fordham University, if they get locked up for a nickel bag, guess what? They're getting expelled. If this white kid gets if this black kid gets locked up for a nickel bag, guess what? They're probably not going to be able to get a good job, or they might waste away in prison, right? So I believe that de-escalation is an important part of policing. Using your discretion is an important part of policing, but the double-edged sword is now we have what? Body cameras, right? So now the discretion a lot of times goes out the window. The stuff that I got away with back in the 90s and the 2000s, the throwing of the weeds down the drain and not locking up somebody when I have a complainant screaming that they shoplifted in their bodega, I can't do that now.
Well, okay, that also raises the issue of aggressive policing.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the city right now. We're broadcasting from Yonkers, and Yonkers cops have made some incredible arrests. There was one that will go down in history. They had chased a guy right around the corner from here. They had him down on the ground, right around the corner from here. The guy had a gun. The guy fired 5 shots while he was down on the ground. And there were a whole bunch of Yonkers cops on top of him, and the Yonkers cops never fired one round, not one round. Now, think about that. You got a guy underneath you who's wrestling with the gun. The guy gets to 5 shots, and you don't retaliate with a volley of shots.
Right.
The guy was able to be handcuffed. He was apprehended, put into a patrol car, and he's, God willing, is serving time now.
Right.
But at the same time, you have people that would say that they manhandled this guy and that they didn't treat him properly, and they didn't. He should not have gotten the treatment that he got. So how do you deal with that?
So to that point, aggressive policing is in the eye of the beholder, I believe, right? So you have over 800, well, now the numbers are down, over 800,000 sworn law enforcement officers in this country, in the United States, right? Including constables, process servers, things of that nature, right? You have over 800,000. You have over 70 million interactions between the police and public every year in this country, maybe more, okay? Most of that which is on a street level, right? Street level encounters. The outliers, the things that happen that are bad, and I say it's one of my mantras, and they know, nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. Nobody, right? Because it makes us all look bad. We're the only profession in this country, and I challenge you to name another one, that when one member messes up, the whole profession is bad.
It's a stigma. It is.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
It's horrible.
It's easy for people.
There was an incident. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There was an incident that happened. I believe it was in California, where there was a 15-year-old autistic boy. He was destroying his apartment, right? And the police were called, and they have the 911 tapes. They released them, and they were saying he's going to try to kill us. He's breaking doors down. He's doing whatever. And the police had knowledge of this kid, and he was violent. He was a big kid, and he was violent. The police got there. There's body cam footage. Okay, they responded. He had a shovel, a sharp gardening tool, which can be deadly. Right? He approached the police. They tried to de-escalate it, and they ended up having to kill him. They shot him, and they killed him. Right? Everybody on that side of the house, the Ben Crumps, the Al Sharptons, they want these cops, they want their heads on a platter. What were they supposed to do? Everybody's an expert in policing until they have to go take a test and become a cop.
And what a lot of people don't understand is that when cops shoot, they aim for critical mass. And I've heard it a million times, well, why didn't they shoot him in the leg? Why didn't they shoot him in the arm?
Because you shoot to stop.
Because you have to shoot to stop him. And if you shoot the guy in the arm, you don't know if he has a gun in his pocket, because the other hand may be able to engage the other hand and then shoot the cop. So it's never a question of selective shooting. It's critical mass. and critical mass is...
Listen, cops in this country don't train enough, and I'll be the first to admit that. They don't train enough in self-defense tactics. They don't train enough in firearms. I mean, the NYPD, you only have to qualify twice a year. There are cops out there, and I knew some of them, that they'd be lucky if they could hit the side of a barn with a beach ball, right? Much less shoot a gun out of somebody's hand or shoot somebody in the leg or whatever. When you shoot, you never shoot to kill, you shoot to stop. You shoot to stop the threat. The use of force continuum dictates that the perpetrator dictates the amount of force used, right? And you escalate as it goes, right? So, I mean, again, aggressive policing is in the eye of the beholder.
You now have a phenomenon that we have never experienced before: mass migration coming into all parts of the country. California, New York, and Chicago have gotten hit hardest.
Illegal
immigration.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people that come from countries where, let's face it, the cops are corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you
Absolutely.
get busted by a cop, you can slip a cop a couple of dollars,
Yep.
and he lets you go.
Yep.
Now, people are coming here, and they have to deal with a different encounter with the cops,
Mm-hmm.
where it isn't done. And there have been a lot of incidents where cops have had to use that aggressive policing that we're talking about.
Right.
How do you deal with that? I mean, how do we deal with that as a society? Number one, open borders, and number two, to kind of re-educate people when they come here that cops work here differently than they do in Guatemala, in Mexico, in Colombia.
So the police have a mission, right? Their mission is to serve and protect. Now, when I was a police officer, again, right, a big part of the community in which I served was a migrant community, right? Because it covered Arthur Avenue. We covered Arthur Avenue. And what's on Arthur Avenue? Restaurants. And who works in restaurants, right? Central South Americans, Mexicans, they work in restaurants. So whenever there was a homicide or whenever one of them was assaulted, I spoke Spanish, right? So I speak Spanish, and I was able to go into the community and say, hey, look, I'm not worried about your status. I'm worried about getting you justice. I want to get your loved one justice. I don't care if you're here illegally, okay? Different times, right? Now, the border, listen, again, and I hate to go back to this, but when Donald Trump was in office, you had less than 500,000 border crossings a year in this country. Now they're up to 2 million. You have over 2 million in this country. You have these border encounters. Look, did he build a wall he said he was going to build? No, he didn't. All right, it was a dumb idea to think that he was just going to build a wall and it was going to solve all these problems. I'll be the first to admit that. But when you have the liberal Democratic Party saying that putting razor wire on the border in order to keep these people, to deter them from trying to cross, because there's not enough being done to stop them, and they say it's cruel and unusual or it's illegal, and they sue the Border Patrol, you have the government suing an arm of the government in order to not put barbed wire to prevent these crossings from happening. I mean, it's stupid. It's counterproductive. When we take resources and we open shelters and we give people $56 million worth of American Express gift cards to go buy food and whatever they need in New York City, because Mayor Adams' argument was, well, a lot of the food that's being given to them is being wasted because they're not eating it because they don't like it. So now my idea is I'm going to give them $56 million worth of taxpayer money. Guess who that's coming from? It's coming from black and Hispanic folks. It's not coming from white folks. It's not coming from the people on Madison Avenue. It's not coming from the people here in Scarsdale and Westchester, right? It's not coming from them, from Dobbs Ferry. It's not coming from those people, right? Thornwood. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's coming from blacks and Hispanics. The resources that are here, legally, the resources are being taken from our communities that need them. Homeless, how many homeless Hispanics and blacks do we have? How many homeless veterans do we have? How many children do we have that have food insecurity in this country?
But when you support Trump,
Mm-hmm.
first, before we even get to Trump, because that's going to be a second part of our conversation, I want to give a plug out to the people that are hosting us today. Dos Marias Restaurant at 200 Main Street. There is parking. There is good food. There is hot food on a cold day and cold food on a hot day. So come down to Dos Marias 200 New Main Street in downtown Yonkers and enjoy. It's a beautiful restaurant, plenty of seating, lots of beautiful colors, good service. And while we're on the topic of Mexican food, we are going to talk about that's a I don't know if that's a bad segue, folks, or not.
It's a segue, yeah.
We're going to talk about the Mexican migrants that are coming into the country and how are we dealing with it?
So a lot of these young men, right? Because we're being shown on a loop ad nauseum this video of this activist meeting people at Port Authority getting off the bus. I don't know the guy's name. He's got a big afro. Okay, Malu. I apologize, no disrespect intended. I'm a little jealous because I have no hair. But so we see this loop ad nauseum of him standing greeting this mother with her young children off of the bus with masks on. Right? That's not the reality. The reality is that you have military-aged males are the majority of who's coming across the border, right? And coming from their countries, they're bringing their tactics with them, right? They're riding around on mopeds, they're doing snatches, right? They're doing chain snatches, they're snatching people's phones, they're taking their AirPods, headphones, whatever the case may be. They're bringing those tactics. The police have a conundrum right now, right? They have to, it's a new style of stick-up kid, so to speak, right? It's a new style of crime, right? So you have patterns, right? And now, guess what? Stop, question, and frisk, right, is out the window, right? So now, when I see, as a police officer, these people riding on the sidewalk with their scooters, and I know they're trying to do a stick-up, and they're riding around in masks, and it's 90 degrees outside, right? Can I stop them based on my reasonable suspicion or my mere suspicion as a police officer? The answer is no, right? Because people like Bronx defenders are going to take up their cause at the cost of our minorities who are being victimized, right? Because again, they're not doing this on Madison Avenue. They're not doing this in Park Avenue.
It's affecting
it's affecting the minority community. Their victims are minorities. So the people that the Democrats are purportedly trying to save are getting hurt the most by their policies.
But then again, to play devil's advocate, how could Trump make it different? Because people have called Trump a racist. Trump has said some things about has made I wouldn't even call it veiled racist statements about Latinos and Hispanics. There was a quote the other day where he claimed that migrants weren't people. I mean, how do you wrap your head around that?
So I think a lot of it is context, right? People have to understand. Look, he said this thing about a bloodbath last week. Everybody was running with that ball. Bloodbath, like me tenía un lado hinchado, like they say in Spanish, right? It was like up to my ears in a bloodbath.
Right.
It was taken out of context, right? That term is actually an economic term that is meant to describe. And what he was talking about in context was China building these vehicles and bringing them over. And he said if he wasn't elected, there was going to be an economic bloodbath. But the CNNs, the MSNBCs of the world took it and they ran with it, right? Which is what they do. I get it, right? It's partisan politics nonsense. Trump, when he was in office, again, the border crossings were at about 500,000 a year. They're up to over 2 million.
But you could argue also, forgive me for interrupting, but you could argue also that when Trump was president, that there were a lot of different circumstances. I mean, we are now in a post-COVID era, and COVID certainly impacted crop production, labor in Central and South America. We're also in an era now where there are states that just don't have enough labor. I mean, look, Tyson Food is an example. Tyson Food has laid off, 1,200 Americans.
So that's not because they don't have labor. It's because now they're giving jobs to people who will do the job for less
and they're paying
and expect less.
Yeah, they're paying $16 an hour,
exactly,
which is below what they had to pay American workers. Now,
so there's this, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's this image of racism when Trump speaks, right? It's always they default to racism, right? Forget that Biden said if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Forget that Biden, when he was a congressman or when he was a senator, when he was standing in front of the House Judiciary Committee spoke about young black and Hispanic men being born out of wedlock and not having fathers and becoming predators, right? And that we had to stop it because they're going to, this is Biden speaking, right? There's video of it all over the place. There's social media, right? Nothing goes away now. There's social media, there's videos, plenty of videos of him saying, they're out here to kill my son. They're out here to kill my daughter. They're out here to rob my mother, right? And they're going to grow into predators. Forget about that. Nobody cares about that, right? It's always Trump. When Trump said the China virus, right? Everybody says, oh, that's racist. And he said China. Guess what? The virus came from China, okay? I mean, that's a fact. The fact that he said it came from China when that's where it came from makes him racist? I mean, listen, he called Central and South America, a lot of the countries, shithole countries. Guess what? They're shithole countries. They wouldn't be coming here if they weren't. These people, if you want to help them, my thing is, help them, right? We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. We're sending billions of dollars to Israel, right? If we want to keep these people prosperous in their countries and help the border, let's give them a little money and let them and help them keep their people prosperous. The problem is those governments are corrupt.
But it's been problematic. It's been
Absolutely.
said that a lot of the Central American countries are increasing their gross national profit because migrants are coming to the United States and sending money back to their relatives. I mean, you have a town in Mexico, for example, Puebla, which is built up tremendously. Fabulous houses because of the migrants that came here, worked hard, sent the money back home.
These are the migrants.
Recreated neighborhoods.
These are the migrants that I was talking about in the 90s that worked on Arthur Avenue. These are not the migrants of today. This is that the infrastructure that was built in Puebla was not because of the migrants that crossed last month or last year or even 2 years ago. That's old money. Okay, these are people, and listen, okay, I have nothing against immigration. I have nothing against immigrants, okay? If you're here and you're contributing to society and you're paying your taxes and you're sending your kids to school, the immigration system needs to be fixed. Okay, there should be a fast track to citizenship for people who have been here 15 years, have never been arrested, have never gotten in trouble, and have been contributing to society. Now you have folks, a cop was killed 2 weeks ago by an illegal immigrant, okay? And guess what? They let him out. And what was the excuse? He didn't understand English, so he didn't understand the officer's commands, and now this cop killer is free. And guess who he's going to victimize next? Again, it all falls down to me. The people that the Democrats claim that they're protecting are the ones who are losing resources, the ones who are losing police officers, okay, because cops are leaving in droves. Okay, when I became an NYPD officer in 1992, there were upwards of 38,000 police officers or members of the service in the NYPD. Now we're close to 30, okay, close to 30,000. Why? Because, again, the Democratic, socialist, liberal city council does not back their police. Okay, the Jamal Bowmans of the world are sleeping behind in an army base behind walls and fences, but claiming that the streets, are fine and that the police are they're too much and they're heavy-handed and yada yada yada. There's no support for the police. There's no support for aggressive and empathetic policing because both aren't mutually exclusive. I was as aggressive as they came, and I paid for plenty of haircuts. I paid for plenty of rents. I paid for plenty of food. Okay, I did it when I was a patrol cop. The good guys and the bad guys in my neighborhood knew me. And guess what? When I was out there doing stop, question, and frisk, the people in the community knew it, and they wanted it done. They appreciated it because I treated people with respect. You have to treat people with dignity and respect. Because if you don't, people are going to get angry. I used to always tell my cops, don't embarrass people in front of their girlfriend, don't embarrass them in front of their homeboys, and don't embarrass them in front of their kids, because they're going to fight.
What's going to happen? I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball.
I wish I did.
What's going to happen if the situation as it stands, undeterred, the situation meaning the antipathy towards police, the unstopping of people coming in across the border 2 years from now, if Trump is not elected again, how do you perceive society?
Well, I want to be clear that even if Trump is elected, the New York City Council is still going to be leftist, socialist, liberals. Most of these blue cities in this country are not going to change, right? Their leadership is not going to change. Having him at the helm is not going to have as much of an effect unless people vote the right way and start voting and supporting law and order, right? It's not going to change. It's only going to get worse because between technology, right? We have AI who's replacing people.
AI.
We're going to have robots replacing people. Try to go to a McDonald's now and get a Happy Meal like you used to be able to get it for $3.99. Now you're paying $12 for a Happy Meal. Now you're paying, so the jobs are going to continue to go away due to technology, and then you're going to have this influx. Again, the Arthur Avenue workers, 25 years ago, different. Now you're going to have these people like Tyson Foods who are giving their jobs to these illegal immigrants who are coming here, and guess who's suffering, right? The people who claim that they don't have the same opportunity as white folks, the people who claim that they don't have the same education as white folks, the people who claim that they're being discriminated against because of racism, they're going to suffer most under the guise of, oh, we're the Democratic Party and we're taking care of you.
So what's the answer? I mean, right now we have a lot of people listening. What's your advice to people who are listening and they are as concerned about the future, their family's future, as you and I are? Does that mean political empowerment? Does it mean calling elected officials? Does it mean changing? Something as simple as getting a voter registration card? Does it mean changing political parties?
It means voting like your life depends upon it. You could stay registered a Democrat until the day you die. It doesn't matter. But you have to understand that it's okay to cross party lines. It's okay to say, hey, you know what? This Republican, I dig some of his stuff. Same thing for me, right? If a Democrat comes to the table with some good policies, guess what? I'm going to vote for that. Again, I voted for Obama twice, okay? You have to vote like your life depends upon it, because it does. If you have officials in office that you elected who are not doing their jobs, AOCs of the world, people like that, you have to vote them out. You have to fire them, essentially, and get people in there. Listen, it could be another Democrat, as long as it's a conservative Democrat or somebody with a track record who's going to help support your community, who's going to help get you some money and some resources and stop taking it away and giving it to people who shouldn't be here. You have to vote. Voting is the only way to change it. And to that point, listen, I don't know a black person or a Hispanic person in my world, okay? And again, I came from nothing. I still have family members who live in the Bronx. I still have family members that live below the poverty line, okay? I don't know a black or Hispanic person who's living in poverty or struggling who doesn't have some form of identification, who doesn't know how to access the internet, who doesn't know how to get to a library or a voting station. This stupidity that is being pushed upon our minority community by the Democrats, that requiring an ID to vote is racist or some way trying to suppress the votes of minorities, is stupid. It's one of the most stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. And it does nothing but bamboozle people into thinking that Republicans are racist and they don't want you to vote.
So I think what you're saying is just a matter of educating yourselves, educating
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Research
And kind of broadening our political concepts,
Yeah.
that it's not either or. It's not Republican, it's not Democrat. I mean, you can, as Angel has done, you can register as an independent.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what the political contest is, you can say, well, all right, I may vote Republican this time, I may vote Democrat this time. But the whole point is that we have choices, and we've got to exercise those choices.
Yeah.
And that being said, you have your choice now. If there's anything
I do.
I've forgotten.
Listen, I just want to, again, this is all about, and you young folks especially, right? I'm 53 years old. I'm going to be 54. I know I look beautiful. I use Audible light. But listen, you have to learn how to listen to each other. You have to learn civil discourse. You have to, I used to tell my kids all the time, right? Whatever you hate, learn about it the most, right? Do your research, because you're able to argue respectfully your point. You're able to see that maybe your view is not the right view, so to speak, or necessarily what's right for you at this time, right? Because things change. As society evolves, government evolves, policing evolves, things have to change. People have to do their research. They have to be open-minded, and they have to stop buying into this mentality that if you're black or you're Hispanic and you're Republican or you're a conservative or you believe in traditional values, that you're a sellout or you're kissing a white man's ass or you think you're white, you're a Karen, you're an Uncle Tom, you're dancing the jig. I mean, I hear it all the time. We have to get away from that mentality because it's ignorant. It's ignorant. It's ignorant to think. It's ignorant to not realize that the media is complicit. The media, when they put out a headline, whenever a black or Hispanic person is killed by a white person or police officer, the first thing you see in that headline is black person killed by white person, black person killed by police officer. And when the roles are reversed, and listen, don't take my word for it, do your research. Google it. It's easy. It's there. You have the technology at your fingertips. Google, white person killed by black criminal. You'll find nothing. There's no articles that call out the skin color of the perpetrators or the victims unless the victim is black and the perpetrator is white or a police officer. So, do your research. Don't believe the first thing you click on, because 9 times out of 10 is clickbait.
And with that
That's the best
said,
I can do.
I think we have ended our Yonkers Voice interview with Angel Maysonet. Follow Angel Maysonet. Angel Maysonet, one thing I admitted, you have a podcast.
I do. I've taken a break. It's Nothing Further Podcast. I have a few episodes up there if you want to check it out. I've taken a break due to my partner still being an active police officer, and kind of got to be careful of what's being said. I try to do lives every once in a while. Follow me on Instagram, Big Rican Man. That's me. On Instagram, on Twitter or X.
And Facebook.
Big Rican Man. I'm on Facebook. My page is open, Angel Maysonet. Follow me. Be respectful. I'll be respectful back. I give it as good as I take it. Right. If you disrespect me, I'll come right back at you. I'm very
and he's like honest. He's 6'4", guys.
Yeah, I'm 6'5". Yeah. Don't take an inch from a man. That's not good.
He's like 6'5".
Yeah, I'm 6'5", 285. Give or take a few pateles. But listen. Come at me respectfully. Just have some dialogue. Let's talk. Vote like your life depends on it. That's it.
There you go.